ようこそどうぞはじめまして
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. You know, I'm pretty confident that if you dropped us on a battlefield with 99 other anime podcasts, we'd have a good chance of coming out on top. I don't know.
We would be the last podcast standing.
I don't know.
Make no mistake.
I don't know how to do T-spins, so I don't know if we'd make it.
Well, no, yeah, man, it's fine. We drop in at water treatment. All right, it's not usually as hot as artillery. We arm up. We move into bone zone from there. We got this. As long as nobody disconnects on us, we should be fine.
Yeah. I have a feeling we're starting to use.
Hold on, I thought we were talking about Tetris 99 here.
What?
Oh, that's definitely what I was talking about.
We're talking about the battle royale that actually matters that came out this week. So.
Yeah, I feel like we are. I feel like we're starting to overuse that battle royale joke, but at the same time, considering this week had two overnight sensation free-to-play battle royale games that came out of nowhere with no announcements and no marketing, and within a week of each other, I think the joke is still relevant for now. We'll get back to you next.
Rune Factory 5 is the more important announcement.
Yes. Well, it depends.
Hollow Knight Silk Song.
Well, it depends because they didn't show any waifus. They only showed a logo. I can't judge Rune Factory 5's waifu game based on its logo. Like that.
3 and 4 had pretty decent waifu game.
3 had pretty decent ones. 4, I feel like 4
3
was
is
kind
of a higher
lacking.
tier than 4. 4 was fine.
4 was okay. 4 had Forte, and that was about it.
4 had some good husbandos.
Who the fuck cares about husbandos? Not me.
So you're saying it's like Persona, where 3 had better waifus than 4?
Whoa, what? Excuse me?
Whoa!
Excuse me?
No, I'm just trying to set you guys up.
Do we want to get into do we want to have this conversation now?
No, I'm not even sure I really believe that. 3 just has Igus.
Yes, 3 has Igus. Yes, without a doubt.
So
what? Who? Mitsuru? What is Burger? No, whatever.
No, I can't even really say that with conviction myself. I just wanted to set you guys off.
Get out of here. Get out of here with that.
The thing is, Rune Factory 3 has like 15 bachelorettes or whatever, and because Rune Factory 4 allows you to play as men or a woman, it has around the same number but split between men and ladies.
Yeah, and I got nothing against that. I'm just saying that means half the available field has no appeal to me. So that means that what remaining half you do have, they gotta be top tier. And I feel like 4's was not. Like, what the fuck you got?
That's fine if you go for...
You got Forte, you got Chlorica, you got Margaret, you got...
Are you seriously arguing... Are you seriously arguing that any of those are worth, fucking half of a what's her name? Of a...
Raven, Carmen, Karina.
Yeah, exactly. That trio. Exactly. That exact trio. Are you saying any of those girls in 4 are worth
talking about fucking DS games in 2019?
Exactly. You come, welcome to the GLORIO Chat. Your latest and your latest and the most relevant
3.
Yes, your go-to podcast for the most relevant takes on the latest DS
on the
Moon spin-off RPGs.
On the almost 10-year-old Rune Factory 3.
Between this and Legend of the GLORIO Heroes, you can depend on the GLORIO Network to talk about the most important stuff that's happening right now.
Have they made a Rune Factory / Harvest Moon gacha game yet?
I don't know if you'd have enough girls for the.
If you throw everything together, there's definitely enough.
Yeah, I got to roll for my 5-star Karen.
Yeah, I think if you combined all the Harvest Moons and Rune Factories together, I'm sure you'd have enough. And I mean, you could even crank out, because then you can just flip them all over for their, like, wedding dress version.
Exactly.
Their swimsuit version and the Christmas Santa hat one. And
what a fucking Harvest Moon gacha just play like Fate Go, where it's like, oh, I got a woo Karen, but I need like 5 3-star booze essences. Like I need to combine them to.
Just be Farmville, but with ladies.
Oh yeah, there's already tons of games where you could do the farming part, and then.
Well, but that's the thing. Like if it's a gacha game, like fucking.
Well, I mean, the farming part is just putting stuff on timers, which is, mobile game 101. And then,
if you assign people to certain plots, so they add specific bonuses. So, like, maybe like Celia increases the timer for your farming, and Anne increases the timer for your, like, farm animals.
Maybe we should stop saying this. Take this offline and start working on this ourselves. But
fucking hit up Natsume. Or does Natsume even make those games anymore? Shit, who owns the rights to Harvest Moon?
Oh, you want to get into that, do you?
Is it Marvelous?
No, yeah.
Marvelous owns the original series in Japan, but because Natsume owns the copyright to the name Harvest Moon, Natsume is making their own Harvest Moon games, and the original Harvest Moon series must now be released as Story of Seasons.
All right, so we're making a Story of Seasons gacha game.
Oh, is that how that worked? Okay, now I
So then, who makes the Harvest Moon games?
Marvelous.
Who makes the Harvest Moon games that are called Harvest Moon in America?
I mean, it used to be Marvelous,
right? But ever since the rights split, like
now, Natsume is putting out their own games called Harvest Moon.
I
believe.
All right, let's steer the ship back on track here. that was a tangent that came out of nowhere, but Rune Factory is super anime, so I think that's still relevant. But anyway, so we're at the middle of the season, and it's going all right, I guess. Again, I'm still enjoying the shows that I'm watching, but maybe not the strongest of seasons. But we'll get into that.
I'm just telling our lovely listeners out there, the reason why we are allowing ourselves to go on these tangents is because if we just talk shop this podcast, this thing's going to be over in like 45 minutes. So,
I'm sure I'll find plenty to say when I explain the elaborate series of episodes in Kakegurui. But we'll get to that in a minute.
I'm just like the best thing we watched in the past. The best thing we watched in the past week was like the extra episode of a show from last year.
Yeah, which we will shoehorn into this podcast somehow.
Which show did I miss that?
I'm glad you asked, Jel. So it turns out that Double Decker is releasing a trio of extra episodes after it aired, and we watched the first of those last night. Iro, tell me your thoughts on it.
Man, Double Decker's real good.
Indeed.
That show's very funny.
Yeah, it's...
Everyone in the show is a total fucking asshole.
Everybody is a dirtbag. Everybody is literally the worst. And I feel like, to make this into an actual relevant podcast discussion, I feel like, I haven't, I'm not watching Kaguya-sama, so, maybe I don't fucking know, but, like, I feel like this season has been kind of weak on the comedy side of things. I feel like,
Kaguya definitely is top-tier comedy, so, but aside from that, everything else has been trash, yes.
I'll take your word for it, but, like, I feel like in that specific realm of, like, people being awful to each other comedy, I feel like we've been lacking, and here comes fucking Double Decker riding in on its white horse, being like, "Don't worry."
Riding in with its cop car, sirens blazing.
Exactly. It's like, "Don't worry. Look at all these fucking awful people talk about their lives and how fucking,
each of them got hired on the 70 police force,
and how shitty our boss is. Just what kind of abominable human being he is, but also still undeniably funny." And I don't know, yeah, just having not watched that show in like a
couple months.
Yeah, it was a real refreshing, it was a real breath of fresh air. Just like, oh man, I totally forgot that anime could be good.
A double-decker is actually hilarious.
Yes, that double-decker should have made her top 10 of 2018.
Did they put all 3 episodes out at once, or just one out right now?
No, just the one.
I think it's just one, yeah.
Okay.
And like,
is it
we won't go into it.
Packing them in the Blu-rays or something, or
I think that's
something along those lines.
Like that, yeah. We won't go into it too much, but basically it's just like, it's an episode that recognizes, oh, good, we're releasing standalone OVAs. What this means is that we can now have an entire episode solely devoted to the characters like getting drunk and shit talking each other, and it works marvelously.
No big plot they have to work with or anything.
None at all.
Okay,
and it works out amazingly.
All right, I do. That is one of the shows I regret missing from last year. So it sounds pretty good.
It's a very particular type of comedy that you don't see too often. I feel like,
especially in anime.
Even if there's a fair amount of anime where the joke is everyone's drinks to each other, like the very specific way, Double Decker pulls it off.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So at least one bright spot this week, right?
So, hell yeah. There's a couple.
I don't want to undersell. There's some good stuff in here. So let's get into that. I guess somewhere in there we missed introducing everybody. So I'm Gel, and we also have Iro and G. If you haven't figured that out by now,
yeah. Hi.
So hi guys. Now that we're
where are we dropping, boys? Shit, that bit doesn't work anymore. God damn it, we lost our chance.
Yeah.
All right.
So, well, I'm sure we'll have more Battle Royale jokes next episode, but let's get into the shows. So, let's start with Mob Psycho 100 Season 2. And before we get into these episodes, I did catch up since last episode. So I'm up to date.
Okay, good.
And I will say, just overall, episodes 1 through 4, I really like the direction they're going with Mob's character and his development. Also, I think there's too much Reigen. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
That's a take.
Or I think it's not that I don't like Reigen. I do like him as a character, and I think he should be playing an important role in the show, but I feel like he's kind of hijacked the show up until episode 5, 6. And I guess we'll get into 6, where I think will be a more interesting discussion. But anyway, episode 5 had us wrapping up the story with I can't remember the girl's name now.
The bad psychic. Who gives a fuck?
He's fighting the bad psychic, and there's a really cool fight at the end.
Yo, that fucking fight! Holy shit!
Episode is a visual triumph.
Yeah, it's, as I've been telling these guys all fucking week, like, TV anime rarely fucking kicks it off the way this episode does. Like,
yeah,
to this level, you know. I feel like what we got, the fucking just nonstop 10 minutes of just amazing animation we got in this episode. Some TV anime will be lucky to have 10 minutes of footage that looks that good across their entire 26 episode run. And Bones is just fucking out here like fucking whatever. This is episode 5. Whatever. We'll just kick it up a notch. Why don't we? You know? You know, this episode is very much like fucking this episode is very much like Goku saying, like, this is called a Super Saiyan. But you'll get a kick out of this.
And this is called Super Saiyan 2.
Mob does basically hit his Super Saiyan mode here, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
Question mark percent.
Yeah. Like I asked, who would win in a fight? Goku with Ultra Instinct, or question mark percent Mob? I don't know, but
it's a tough choice. I mean, Mob gets real anime eyes when he powers up. So
yeah, that's terrifying. He loses the One Punch Man look and gets actual real anime eyes.
Becomes a real anime character.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. Terrifyingly powerful, but terrifying nonetheless.
So, Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to say a whole lot about that part of it because it's a visual thing. So if you
Well, I
haven't
think that
seen
we
it,
then we can focus on. Um, I think that also, despite the visual spectacle, that episode has some pretty decent storytelling too. Like, look, the cliche of like you would never become a bad person because your friends are always here for you is like, the oldest trick in the book. But I feel like that's also kind of gets to the heart of like Mob Psycho 100, and it's kind of like explicitly like anti like misanthrope, you know, tone, I guess.
I think it matches what they're doing with Mob's character pretty well in this instance as well. Like,
Yeah,
he's having this internal struggle of trying to figure out how to be, I guess if you want to sum it up, more selfish because he needs to be. But
yeah,
how do you balance that with being when you have the type of powers he have? How do you balance that without turning into whatever the bad guy's name is in this one? I forget his name. So the that's kind of always been the conflict in Mob Psycho, but Mob has always been very quick to just defer back to well, I'd rather just not do anything at all. Whereas now he's kind of pushing more into being more proactive a
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
And I think the way they set that up in this episode was pretty good. Culminating in the big visual spectacle, which was just like a great way to drive it home. So it was a really strong episode overall for sure.
Yeah. And I'd even go as far as say that character development helps perfectly set up episode 6.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. So I was saying that there was too much Reigen, and I
we
do
get
have
the
to wonder.
Reigen episode.
Well, here's the thing: I do have to wonder if that. Well, because there's two theories you could take, I think, on why there's too much Reigen. One, the internet loves Reigen.
Yes, I think that's kind of it. But
I do have to wonder if they were setting up for this kind of turn of events in episode 6, where we've been kind of overdosed with Reigen, and we kind of, me personally anyway, you kind of understood why Mob was finally just going to snap here and be like, look, dude, you can't keep doing this to me. And it's also kind of a reminder that while everybody quote unquote loves Reigen, he has been sort of emotionally manipulating a child for his own benefit over the past
he's a dirtbag, like
30
through and
episodes
through.
or whatever. But so kind of seeing him at least temporarily kind of get pulled back down to earth here and kind of get a reality check was nice. Although I don't know if that's ultimately the decision, the direction they're going. Because he ends up becoming more popular than ever.
Yes, but also I
episode.
think this episode actually does some really smart stuff with Reigen's character, in the sense that like I feel like this episode actually does a lot of really excellent, like I wouldn't say subtle, but like surprisingly understated character work with Reigen. As a result of kind of his falling out with, or Mob's falling out with him, at the beginning of the episode. There's this element of like, initially like, the joke is that Reigen's like, I'm fine. I can be by myself. I don't need Mob. He'll come crying back to me eventually. And like, he tries to pull like his emotionally manipulative tricks on Dimple, and like, his, kind of pseudo stalking Mob to see like, okay, he's got to break eventually, right? And it's like, actually, no, Mob's like totally fine.
He's doing pretty good. Yeah.
And like, even Dimple is just like, yeah, okay, man. Like
when Dimple's taking the high road,
yeah, it's
taking
like
a turn.
Right, like when Dimple of all people is like, yeah, okay, if you say so, dude. But and then I think it culminates in like, like the comedic trick of like, haha, look at actually how pathetic this dude's life really is, like behind the scenes, is like not a particularly new thing. Like I think we all predicted, as the minute we realized what the premise of this episode was, that like, oh, we're gonna see like, we're gonna see like Reigen's apartment, we're gonna see like the fucking like shitty, awful life he has like outside of the the agency, and we do see that stuff. But I think there's still some like pretty good like pretty good character stuff at play. And the one I actually really want to shout out is kind of the parallels of the the "It's My Birthday" reveal, essentially. Like at the beginning of the episode, when Mob's like hanging out with like the two clubs, that share that room, right? And like when that one girl's like, "Oh, hey, it's such and such's birthday," and then like the other dude from like the physical improvement club's like, "Actually, it was my birthday last week." It's like, and the way
now
that
we definitely have to celebrate.
Right. When the friends are like, "Oh shit, we should like go do something," it feels very natural. It feels like the thing I would do in high school. Like, and like it's the feeling of like these people aren't necessarily even the closest of friends, but like they are friendly enough with each other. Like in the same way that like when I was in high school, if a friend of a friend of a friend said it was their birthday, I would still come along and be like, "Yeah, we should do something," like whatever.
It's like a support. It's a support network. Like you have
exactly.
friends, we have friends, and yeah.
And it's like it's like this really like natural feeling, like good natured thing. And then later in the episode, when Reagan's like, "Actually, it's my birthday," and then all those people at the bar are like, "Oh, well, happy birthday, man. Anyways, let's go back to talking about my issues." It's like it feels very like that's how your coworkers like treat. Like that's what your coworkers do when you tell them it's your birthday, if that makes sense. That's like people who don't actually really care, people who will hear it's your birthday, wish you happy birthday, and then like completely forget in like the next 10 seconds. And that parallel, I think, actually, I think it's a really fantastic bit of writing in a show that already has like some really solid character work.
Yeah, I thought, I did like the direction they were going with Reagan, to the point where I kind of wished he split with Mob and he found his own path to being successful, and then we just never saw him again. I feel like I would have been happy with that. I mean, I'm a bit, and I understand that's not going to happen, but I feel like I just really hope that this whole arc doesn't come back around to going back to the status quo.
I bet you will.
And it probably will, and that kind of is disappointing.
I mean,
and maybe by status quo, I mean just, Mob doing whatever Reagan tells him to do. And maybe that specifically won't happen, but I'm pretty sure Mob's going to end up working with him again or something. I don't know. But
I mean, yes, I think they will return to that status quo, but I do think and I do hope that Mob Psycho is written well enough that I can see them, returning to a sort of status quo where it is Mob working with Reagan again. But because of how Mob has developed as a person over the course of this show, like I don't think it will, like I at least want to believe that if they do return to that status quo, it will at least result in a new one where Mob is at least on like slightly more even, level with Reagan,
Yeah. Right.
Like closer to partners than just being his underling.
Right. Yeah, so that's all I really ask, is I hope that this ends up with actual progress being made and not just like, because I mean, I have a feeling with Reagan's current success, that's all going to fall out from under him eventually anyway.
Oh, totally. But, yes, I feel like that's exactly what they're setting up.
Yes. So I just hope there's some kind of progress made, and I think you're right. Maybe I should give them a little more benefit of the doubt, given how well they've been developing Mob this season anyway. So I guess we'll have to see. But
indeed,
show's good overall, though. As much as it might sound like I'm trying to complain or something, I still think it's one of the best shows this season for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move along. I did not have time to catch up with Dororo, so you guys are kind of gonna have to fill me in. What's the latest on that one? It looks like from the titles, it looks like there was a two-parter here.
Yeah.
Hyakimaru don't fuck around.
They adapted some stuff, so like the sequence of events is different from the manga, because the story this is adapting was originally in like Kakeguruy's backstory before he meets Dororo, but now it just happens during the show, where they come across a like makeshift orphanage of other children who are missing limbs and whatnot being taken care of by a nice young woman named Mio. And they decide that Hyakumaru should rest here as he recovers from regaining his hearing, because now he's having sensory overload and all that. And being the type of show it is, and they introduce a nice young woman.
No.
Not only a nice young woman, but I mean, we might as well just get to the core of it. A nice young woman who is working as a prostitute for two camps that
opposing military camps.
Two opposing military camps, to hopefully earn enough money so that one day she can take the kids and get out of here and
get out of the war zone.
Yeah, and start a farm, away from the war. And this being a story about Sengoku era Japan, written by Osamu Tezuka, it goes some places.
I mean, you can probably tell the exact arc of this plot line just from us describing it, but
yes. And I think it kind of speaks to the strength of the show that I think for the most part this arc works. I think that it's I wouldn't call it clumsy, but it maybe stumbles in a couple places just because you have to do some of the old cliches oh, don't look at me, my body is tainted, or
I feel like as they go further into it though, they don't really harp on that too much. It's presented more as this is what she has to do to survive in this hellish
yes totally they never
situation.
Right, they never ever portrayed as a negative thing. They portrayed as she is doing exactly what she needs to do to survive in an extremely tumultuous and violent time period, and I'm not even complaining about that. I think it's more just the stuff I feel like maybe because this story was written so many years ago, airing in 2019, it's it is
very well trodden ground at this point.
Right, you can predict the exact arc of the narrative, from the beginning to the end. That it's still done very effectively. It's still done. It's executed very well. I think it's just that because Dororo as a whole is kind of a somewhat predictable show because of the nature of its story.
Within the first 5 minutes of this two-parter, you know how the two-parter is going to end.
Yeah, kind of. But I'd still say it's done. It's done. I do like the way it was done, and watching Hyakumaru just fucking go ape shit on a bunch of shitty samurai is super satisfying.
After they murder a bunch of children on screen.
Yeah. Hyakumaru rips those motherfuckers up.
They're coming.
Totally. And I think actually the conversation that I actually wanted to have on this podcast about these episodes that we kind of were talking about is I feel in general, Hyakumaru Dororo the show, probably because it was written by Tezuka, takes a very dim view of the time period and samurai. And this isn't necessarily unique to Tezuka, but I think it is unique to the time period in which he created this work. Because, I mean, if anybody watches samurai anime in 2019, they are generally portrayed positively, I'd say. Obviously you can still have your arc about the bad, mean samurai, but at the end of the day, the good, honorable
they're still
samurai,
they're still honorable and all that
will win the day. But I think people tend to forget that basically from the 60s until the late 80s, most anime actually portrayed samurai as pretty fucking shitty. You look at stuff like this, and actually, honestly, any anime work or manga that takes place in the Warring States period or the Sengoku era, and they're much more frank in their depiction of samurai, and they're much more willing to depict samurai as essentially just thugs who are given permission to walk around with swords and, carry out their own twisted sense of justice. And I wonder how much of this is like because these pieces were written by people born in post-war Japan. Like people who saw like how dangerous militant ideology and Bushido and all those stuff, the ways those things can get twisted into, violent nationalistic movements. And I wonder, if that's kind of where a lot of that finds its origins. Right. And I guess the only reason why I really think about that is because Dororo is an anime airing in 2019 that is still willing to be like, actually, no, fuck the samurai. Like, they fucking suck.
Yeah. I mean, as far as I've seen, it tracks with how the original manga is, where samurai are not good dudes.
Right.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting perspective. I wonder how much of that is just like intentionally part of the, I don't know, show's message, or is that just a byproduct of, an author that came from that time period? But
I mean, Tezuka was probably pretty anti-war if you look at his output.
I mean, I feel like fucking everybody born in that time period was pretty anti-war. Right?
I mean, yes, you know what I'm saying.
Tezuka, like, turns out that when you see that shit firsthand, you're not so jazzed on it in the way that maybe guys like Shinzo Abe are. So
yeah, and now we are 6 episodes in, and Hyakkimaru has only just regained his voice.
Right. Yes, that happens at the end of the 6th episode. So.
So he can finally talk
speak
now. Okay.
Well, he's mostly just been screaming.
Yeah.
The time we've seen, but.
So this is a kind of a more, I guess, realistic take of what would happen if you just randomly were able to talk again after not being able to your entire life.
I am very curious how that goes. So, yeah.
It sounds like it's still taking a much more serious take on the story then, huh?
Yeah. Not that the original wasn't serious, but there is an element of goofiness.
Well, I think some of that is Tezuka's art style, right? Because
but also just the sensibility of.
Sure. I guess it's just based on what you told me. It's like everything that happens to Mio and the orphanage happens in the manga. Like, it's still pretty fucked up regardless of, Yeah,
but everyone's just round and Disney-like.
Right, but yes, everybody, looks like, an Osamu Tezuka character, I guess, kind of gives it a different vibe, so to speak.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I guess the question is it good?
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Okay. I'm still having a lot of fun with that show.
Right. I want to see what they do with the rest of it, I guess, because no version of the story has ever been quite the same.
Yeah, I mean, that basically ended up being the show I wanted to watch, but I just have not had time past the first episode with all the other things I'm watching. I got to watch shows about cats, man, and crazy gambling high school girls. But
okay, but what about shows about planes?
Yeah, so there's the segue. Let's move along to the Magnificent KOTOBUKI. Has anything interesting happened since last time?
So I feel like this portion will be pretty short because.
Or did you watch it?
Yes, we watched it. I'm having some trouble remembering exactly what these 2 episodes were.
There was the episode about where they had to go infiltrate the pirate stronghold to get back to the right den.
Yeah. Okay, they get the paint
by infiltrating it in the Flying Hostess Club.
Yeah. Okay, yes. And then the following episode was the politician turned ace pilot, or ace pilot turned politician.
Right.
Okay, I remember now. Okay, I think at this point it's like they're fine. Like this episode, the show's just kind of maintaining course. Like,
the pacing of that show is very odd.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Everything that's not the plane stuff where they're flying around shooting at each other for like a solid 5 minutes. everything on the ground, all the conversation happening, it feels like you're watching something at 1.5 speed.
Yeah, that's like a really good description for it. Like everybody, like
So it's actually fast.
yeah, it's very fast. Like I'd almost say too fast paced, and I'm the kind of person who loves it when a show is fast paced. But like,
right, but like I have trouble keeping up with what's being said because they're all just speaking so fast and saying their anime.
And not only are they speaking fast, but they are responding to each other very quickly. Like there's something about the specific timing of this show. Like, we've talked about timing a couple times, I mean, usually in like the scope of talking about like triggers, god tier comedic timing, but like timing in general is a super important thing in animation, like do you have a beat between conversations? Do you have a beat between lines? Like do you have a beat before a character does an action? And the thing that Kotobuki does is, and I don't know if it's an aspect of because it's animated in 3D and like they didn't like think about this or something, but like there are no rest beats between conversations. Like a person talks, person A talks, then person B responds immediately.
And then person C starts talking, and then person D says something else also, and then back to person A who's talking about the other thing, and person B reacts to that, then person C starts talking about their thing, and then we cut over and person G is talking to person F, talking about whatever, and then we cut over to person A talking about pancakes, and then person B is like, oh, check out my stuffed animal, I'm gonna punch the stuffed animal, but oh no, that stuffed animal's from the ocean.
And then they just offhand mention, oh right, well, the ocean doesn't exist anymore in this world, and it's like, I think
like, whoa, slow down a bit here,
right? I think
let me
like
breathe.
Not only are they talking a lot and they're talking quickly, but they're also dropping fairly relevant information, like extremely quickly, and in an almost Tomino-esque manner. Like I feel like even Tomino has more restraint than that in terms of like the way conversations are paced. Like the way I would put it is, it feels like the way it's timed is like, it almost feels like, I don't know, like amateurish stage play acting, in the sense that like when character A says something, character B already knows what they're going to say, right? Like character B already knows their line. So
right, that's a good way to put it.
So they've basically already preloaded their line, and they say it basically at the moment that like character A finishes their line, character B follows up with their line. Like there's no pause, there's no like in between to like give the illusion.
In a real conversation, you need, like, even if it goes fast, you're considering your response on some subconscious level.
Yeah, totally. And I think that Kotobuki is not doing that, which is kind of lending to this like very weirdly frantic pace that almost feels feverish in a way.
Yeah, because like listening to the descriptions of the show, I would have thought it would have been the opposite, where like the non-plain stuff would be like the slice of life anime, just I mean, talking around pancakes stuff, but like to the point where it's like too slow. But I guess you guys are saying they're doing it in double time,
right? Like it is the slice of life stuff, but it is happening at like, as said, 1.5x speed or something. Like
right. Yeah, that's weird. That's real weird.
They do their slice of life bit in like 45 seconds.
I mean, if they slowed it down, though, would you be complaining that it's too slow because it's just,
maybe?
I mean, probably. Yeah. Like it's not like the slice of life bits are that good. So.
Right. I mean, let's just cut to the pancakes and then get back in the plane. I mean,
yeah, and that's the thing. Like the plane parts, it's like, and I wonder how much of this is also like them being like, well, we need to make more time for the planes, like.
Right, because let's rush through the stuff we don't care about to get to the planes.
Because the plane parts are still quite good, or quite good in the way Kotobuki is, which is quite good in their like weirdly very realistic dogfights, which I continue to appreciate. But the combination of all the show's various facets continue to baffle me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're still watching it though.
Oh yeah, totally true.
You made it this far.
Indeed.
I suppose it's true.
So, all right. Well, we'll check back in on that next time then.
Sure.
All right, let's move along to Kakegurui Double Cross.
All right, tell me more. Who is the connected woman?
Who is the Hollywood star?
So, it's nice that this is conveniently panned out where these 2 episode blocks are like exactly the specific battle every week, in between episodes. So like it neatly wraps up like the beginning and end of each fight. So for this battle, we have the return of the two-faced idol girl who literally has stars in her eyes.
Right.
Who
I remember that.
Yeah, she hates being an idol, but she is very ambitious and will do whatever it takes to realize her true dream of being a Hollywood actress. Because that'll
she build Gunpla and participate in Gunpla battle to become the top idol.
So anyway, so she's one of the characters that Yumiko beat in season 1, and then for some reason they were immediately friends after and formed the unfortunately named idol duo Dreaming Creaming Sisters.
Tell me more.
That is the name that they say it in English, so it's not a mistranslation.
Okay.
So, now that we're in our little tournament arc here, the idol girl is actually doing quite well. And she wants to get the band back together with Yumiko so they can take some more fools out together. And before they can do that, though, it's revealed that... okay, how can I explain this? So they dumped like 12 new characters on us in season 2, and we haven't really met all of them, but there's been this one girl who's been just like randomly we've seen walking around, who has like long messy hair and like one of those like, what do you call the masks when people are sick that they wear?
Like sick mask?
Yeah, a sick mask, if you will. So like you can't really see her face. So she's been wandering around the school this whole time, and we've seen her, but we don't know her name, we don't know who she is or anything. And so just as Idol Girl is ready to make her move and towards first place, this girl reveals that she's actually one of the most famous actresses in Hollywood, and the Idol Girl's famous personal her personal favorite actress.
Oh man, the connected woman indeed.
And she challenges her to a acting off.
All right.
So instead of gambling, they have a straight up like it cuts to like the show format changes to become like a Japanese game show, like a wacky Japanese game show.
Oh man!
Like right down to the like narrator throwing a commercial in the middle.
Does it have picture in picture of people reacting?
No, they didn't do that.
Oh, come on!
But they did have. They did have in each episode for the bump. The announcer saying, we'll be back after a word from, our sponsors or whatever.
I think they did that for the Idol episode in season 1.
Yeah, well. It's pretty similar. I think it was pretty similar to what they did there. So, so they play a series of games to test their acting ability against each other. They still call it gambling, even though at this point it has literally nothing to do with gambling.
Sure.
But the best contest of all was in this last week's episode, in episode 6, they play a game called Death Macaroon.
All right. Fucking
okay.
In which each contestant is given a series of 3 macaroons. One of them has a habanero pepper hidden in it.
Okay.
And so the goal isn't to like you'd think it'd be like a Russian roulette thing, right? Where you have to
like the sushi places around here sell like a Russian roulette roll or whatever.
Yeah, that's not that would be too simple for Kakegurui.
Also, the habanero also poison.
No, that would also be too simple because we already did the poison girl.
You're right. The habanero like covered in razor blades.
They gotta mix it up, man.
Yeah, so this is an acting contest. So what's supposed to happen is they have to eat all 3 macaroons, and then the other person has to guess which one is what had the habanero. So they have to act like there's no habanero pepper in it.
Oh shit!
Or
okay,
pretend that the one that didn't have it was the one that had it.
Yeah. Oh man,
that's the level of mind games the show operates with.
Is it like I don't want to make a guess here, but is it like the 2 contestants approach it in the totally opposite ways, where one like pretends that all 3 of them have a habanero in it, while the other one pretends none of them has a habanero in it, as like a proof of like
you're on the right track.
Oh man! All right.
So the Hollywood actress, she just eats them all with a clean face. No way to tell.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
No, you have no way of knowing. Totally stone faced the whole time. The idol girl eats the first one and just starts like sweating profusely, just like looks like she's like it's very clear that this is the one that's the habanero pepper.
That's just what you want me to think, man.
And then the rest of them she just eats like straight up with no problem. And so,
okay.
So you're thinking. So of course, everyone in the audience is like, "Oh, well, obviously she blew it. That's the first one." And of course, us as the audience, we're like, "Okay, she's obviously faking that one, right?"
Yeah, hell yeah.
Was it a double bluff?
So I don't even know if I can explain this correctly because I'm not sure my brain even understands.
Oh man,
it.
please do. I want to try to comprehend this.
So the Hollywood actress totally sees through the entire thing, and she's like, "Okay, so not only were you faking it on the first one, but you knew that I knew that you'd be faking it because you're not a good enough actress." And the habanero, and it had to be like a reflex, and I would need to be able to tell the difference between a reflex and acting. So she calls out the idol girl for what she really did. She broke her own finger under the table.
What?
So that she would have a natural, like, so you'd have like real tears and like a real reaction that she was fighting off.
Some fucking Jotaro stops his own heart with Star Platinum.
Oh man! All right.
And so, but still, the Hollywood actress was so good at detecting real acting versus a reflex that she knew that that is exactly what happened and calls her out.
Fuck, dude! Holy shit!
So I don't even remember what happens after that, to be honest.
Okay. Well,
somehow the idol girl wins like the next competition. But it doesn't matter. I don't really know who won anyway, because the actress woman still won the first two. They don't really explain, and nobody really cares. But Death Macaroon was pretty great. That was the highlight of the. So if I had to explain, the level that this show is operating on, that is how Kakegurui works, and that's why I love it.
4-dimensional chess.
Yes,
God damn. All right. Yeah.
That's 4-dimensional Death Macaroon.
I had some flashbacks. With the.
So, like, the first episode of Death Parade season 2 is gonna be Death Macaroon, right?
I did think Death Parade and their various death games that would have fit like right in with Death Billiards or Death Street Fighter or whatever the other ones they played in Death Parade, but yeah. Anyway, that show's great.
It sounds like something.
They're still also hinting that the cool butler girl is actually the real bad guy. They drop some like real vague hints. Like they do the thing where like at the end of every episode, they just kind of like show her show her at the end for no reason, just doing her butler duties, and then like kind of like looking at the camera at the end, like she's definitely up to something. But like,
all right,
we don't know what yet, because she's not actually participating in any of the games, but she's probably really pulling the strings behind it all or something. I don't know.
Sure, that tracks. The butler did it.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, let's move along.
How much gambling is there in My Roommate is a Cat? Not
much, but I did learn.
Does
learn
a
neat
cat
trick.
Eat a habanero?
No, but I did learn a neat trick about cats eating. If your cat is getting overweight, you take a plastic like soda bottle or something. You put like half a cup of cat food in there. You cut a hole in the side of the bottle that's just big enough for like one piece of cat food to come out. And then you throw it at the cat and have him roll it around and try to get the food out. And that way, you're measuring the portions and he gets his exercise and, you can help get your cat lose weight. So there you go.
Is that a real thing?
Sure. That makes sense. I've
That's
heard
what
of
they do in the show.
I have heard of similar tricks like that. Like, I think another variation of that is like you put like some large object in the middle of the cat's like food bowl. So it has to like work around it. But,
sure.
Sure.
I guess.
I mean, I feel like theoretically, couldn't you just like measure out the portions beforehand and then put that in the bowl?
This dude is like can barely take care of himself, So
yeah, no, that's understandable.
Yeah, so he when he meets up with the cute girl from the pet store, she teaches him how to do this to help his cat stay healthy.
I feel like that's even more work, man. But then just like being like, all right, that's half a cup. That's all you get. Stop whining, cat.
But you do it to impress the cute girl at the pet store.
Yeah, I guess that's a good motivation.
Yeah, I think that may be more where they're going. Well, actually, I think the real ship might be with her little brother, who's like supposed to be in 11th grade, but also looks like a 30-year-old man.
Sure,
okay,
but
is he 2 meters tall and buff?
Yes. He looks kind of like he'd be a character from Nozaki, where everybody is like 6 feet tall and kind of well built. But
sure.
Anyway, so that aside, they took a bit of a more. We finally got the cat who's named Haru. We got a bit more of her tragic backstory because we kept seeing flashbacks.
Tragic cat backstory.
We kept seeing like little glimpses of flashbacks of her finding like her dead little brother. Like, and so dead kittens are always a easy shortcut to emotional gut.
Yeah, that's certainly a way to go for it.
So we get a little bit of her backstory where her and her siblings get abandoned and they meet up with these cool older cats, including a cool lady tiger cat named Tora and this like battle-hardened black cat named Kuru, who has like a scar over his eye from fighting birds. They show him the ways of the streets. And apparently, I did not realize birds swooping down and killing cats was a thing, but that's apparently their number one danger.
Birds are large enough, right?
Well, yeah, it depends on the type of bird, but yes, like
So they have the moment where the older cats have to sacrifice themselves for the kids to get away. And
oh man,
the main girl cat has to like leave her siblings behind for a bit to like go find food, and like one of them gets killed by the birds, and it's like super
dramatic. The fuck is up with these birds?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, okay, I can buy I can buy that happening occasionally, but I didn't know that was like a common thing. I mean,
as somebody who has put a weirdly a weird amount of time researching this, my understanding is that I don't know about Japan, but I know especially here in America, the reason why they actually don't advise you to let your cats out that often is because depending on the area of America you live in, like hawks and falcons might be native to your area.
Right.
And those are birds.
Don't fuck around.
Those birds don't fuck around, and they are more than a match for your average house cat. So I
guess I never lived in an area that had large dangerous birds.
Those things can swoop, if those things can swoop down and pick up a rabbit in their talons, they can do it with a cat.
Yeah, definitely.
The only time I ever remember our cats, when we had outdoor cats interacting with birds, were like little robins and sparrows flying around, and they were like batting at them. But yeah, I guess if it were a bigger. I mean, that's how animals work, right? If you're bigger, you win.
We also get coyotes around here, so...
Right, yes. At least here in California, that's the other thing. You have fucking coyotes and fucking mountain lions and all sorts of fucking shit are up in the woods, up in the hills in California. So, PSA, look, I'm not one of those guys who's like, if you have an outdoor cat, you are literally murdering your cat, but just be safe about it. Be wise about when you let your cat out if you're the kind of person who does.
All right.
More than once, I've looked directly out the window and seen a coyote standing right outside.
Yeah, so just be smart about it. I don't know how that is in Japan. I don't know if they just have a real fucking bird of prey problem or something, but.
Yeah.
What kind of birds are these? Are they like crows or like hawks?
I guess. I don't know what birds. I don't know birds. It was like a black bird thing that flew down and killed them. I don't know. But
what kind of bird is
devil bird?
The thing is, it happens, but birds tend to go after easier prey, especially in urban areas. If you're a crow or a raven, what are you gonna do? You're gonna pick up the breadcrumbs that the old lady's throwing around, or are you gonna fight a cat? There's so many easier sources of food for a bird that lives in the city.
right.
than a cat.
The kittens I get, but like a full-grown, like battle-hardened cat like the Kuro guy, I would imagine you'd rather not fight him if you didn't have to.
Yeah, it's like,
but
look, I get it. It's for drama. It's for drama.
Yeah,
I understand.
They have to have something.
Just these fucking murderous birds with a vendetta against these street cats, apparently.
But yeah, this led to a whole big, like, deeper conversation about, what is your fate as a cat? Like, is it good to and how it's good to end up with a kind human and a family, and they really try to tug at the heartstrings. And again, as I've always said with this show, it's a little on the nose, but it kind of works. It's been growing on me. It's something that is kind of positive, and it's kind of a healing type of show thing, and I'm okay with that. But and they actually had a couple good jokes too, like the pet store girl has like this like old like long haired like cat, and he acts like all tough when the other cat comes over. Oh, that was the other thing. The main the flashback gets triggered because it just so happens that the pet store girl adopted one of Haru's little siblings, so she was reunited with one of her little siblings.
Sure.
Because they all got split apart. But she also has this old grizzled cat, and he's like, don't worry, I'll protect you. And he goes up to the giant little brother, because the other cats are scared of him because he's huge, and he just starts like, how would I put it?
Slap fighting.
He just starts. He just starts playing with him, like, and he's like,
yeah.
and there's like hearts flying off of him and stuff like that. Like that's how he's gonna protect them, and it's a pretty good joke.
That works.
Yeah, so it's an enjoyable show. It's pretty sweet and kind of funny and low key, so I'm enjoying it.
Sure.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, let's talk about the Promised Neverland.
Yeah.
Maybe this show should be subtitled Double Cross. Because there's a lot. Like, we talked about how you have all the different kind of sides and factions and like motivations and stuff going on here, and we've just kind of added like a couple more, I think, in these episodes.
Yeah.
It gets more complicated.
Like I think, as I was talking about this earlier in the day, was that I think the thing with stories like The Promised Neverland, stories that are about secrets and conspiracies, is that once that secret becomes the status quo, keeping that secret is no longer interesting. Like,
right.
Narratively, in a story, secrets exist to be revealed, and secrets exist to be. And once revealed, those secrets exist to be, twisted and changed and altered, and what the various players in the story have to do in response to that is the more interesting aspect of the story. And I think that's what the early parts of The Promised Neverland really nail are the secret of, we know the secret of what's happening to the children, like in a ways, narratively, that secret's already boring. That secret is no longer interesting. It doesn't contribute anything to the story anymore. So The Promised Neverland understands we need to introduce new secrets. We need to introduce new factors that upend the status quo and force us to reconfigure the way we approach things, because that is way more interesting to see.
Right. And so they do kind of add on more layers now, like, the main three are not totally united in what they're trying to accomplish. They're, generally moving towards the same goal, but their motivations are very different. We even see like Don and Gilda in episode 6 taking some of their own initiative. And then, we kind of end on the cliffhanger of, what's going to happen with Sister Crone and how she's going to factor into it. So, there's a lot. They've asked a lot more questions to, I guess, keep us interested, like you're saying, G.
I think because with the introduction of each of these new layers, it kind of adds more facets to, like, because it even adds fastest to the pre-existing agendas that existed with these characters.
Right.
Like you already have you have the interesting core trio of like Emma idealistically wants to save everybody. Ray will do anything he can do to ensure Emma and Norman's survival, and Norman. I don't want to say too much about Norman. Norman is maybe the most interesting of the three in terms of his agenda and like what he is willing to do to achieve it. But I'll just leave it at he wants to do whatever will make Emma happy. So,
right. But also we agreed to trick her.
Yes, regardless if Emma is okay with that or not. Yes, so
right. Yeah, we start to get a glimpse of how far Norman is willing to go to accomplish whatever he's trying to accomplish. I do think it was good that they showed Emma being suspicious of Ray agreeing to help when they're trying to trick her, because they kind of make it, and they kind of have painted Emma as maybe not as being as smart as the other two, which is, perhaps unfair when you've got like, Batman and Sherlock Holmes going at it with each other.
Yeah.
But so I think it was good to show that, she's not just going to be like the muscle and the heart here, that she's also very smart.
Even she is not definitely savvier.
But yeah.
She's definitely savvier than she lets on.
But that said, I am starting to get a little fatigued with like the believability that these kids are 11 and 10 years old.
Yeah, it's.
I didn't think it was
to shonen manga.
Yeah, I didn't think it was too bad in the first couple episodes because they still showed some kind of like emotional vulnerability, but now it's getting a little much. Like,
yeah,
like my niece is 10, like, and I know how she acts, and she's very smart, but like,
did your niece escape from a prison where they shipped off children to be eaten by demons?
I maybe, but not in the not in the ways that, not to the level of like, not to the way that like these kids are thinking, and then also just like the whole thing with Don and Gilda, and they're supposed to be 10, right? Like they're him like having that whole emotional arc of like, we just want to be included and all that, and like all those conversations and stuff. I'm like, I don't feel like those are conversations you would have that seriously at 10 years old, but I don't know. They're also being raised in a very different environment than a normal.
Yeah, the problem, like the thing is that you basically are forced to accept the premise of, oh, this prison raises like super genius children,
right?
Because like that's the only way this premise makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like 90% of the things they do in the story don't really track with what your average 10 to 11-year-old accomplishes. So
yeah. And I get that, and I'm always the first to suspend my disbelief, so that's not usually a problem for me. It's just starting to wear on me a little bit because it is like a little ridiculous. But I don't know. Again, like you said, it's a very different environment than what an average 10 or 11-year-old would have grown up in. So who's to say? But anyway, the show's still good though.
Yeah.
And they are certainly not shy to use those cliffhangers at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to talk about that a bit, Hiro?
I mean, so like there's fundamentally different types of cliffhangers. I think the right type of way to do cliffhanger is when something crazy happens at the end of the episode, and then as the next episode begins, we have to deal with the new status quo or whatever. But occasionally the show is doing the thing where the cliffhanger is, and the door opens, and behind it is
right, something crazy.
And then the next episode starts
about to happen, but you don't know what it is till next week.
Yeah.
And then inevitably what happens next week is it wasn't that big of a deal, and we can keep going on with our lives.
Right.
And like that's kind of the cheaty way to use a cliffhanger.
Yeah,
but
I would definitely say that for better or worse, The Promised Neverland is very guilty about that plot trick.
Right.
I think it relies on it a little too much, and again, I don't want to ever use this podcast to talk about like my issues with the manga, because we might not ever get to that part of the story in the anime, but like there are parts later in the manga that still use that plot trick where it doesn't really feel appropriate, and you're like, you're just kind of deflating the drama out of the room every time you do this. Like, eventually, it's the boy who cried wolf situation. You cry wolf one too many times, and like, I'm just gonna stop taking it seriously. But, concerning the anime itself, I will say that it hits often enough with its cliffhangers that I think it's still they're still worth investing in. Like, as somebody who's read the manga, I will say that like the Sister Crone stuff that we're gonna see in like the next couple of episodes is very interesting.
Well,
I'm curious.
We'll have to see where that goes then next time. So we'll talk about that next episode, I guess. But yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how they're going to spin that. But yeah, it just, I mean, we know there's only so much they can shake things up, like in the middle of the season or whatever. So it's kind of hard to like take those cliffhangers. Like even like last episode when we talked about how it ended with, the Ray thing. Like, I didn't think he was going to be like, I didn't think that was really going to change much. And, it did change some things, but, ultimately, we kind of settled back into the similar routine. So I don't know, but we'll see how that all goes. Still a good show.
Yeah. Will these kids have to pay the price of smiles?
Speaking of a show that maybe isn't good, I don't know if you guys are going to be willing to say this show is good, at least in a traditional sense anyway. So what's going on with the show? I feel very similar to how you guys must feel with Kakegurui. I just like hearing you tell me what happens.
This goddamn show. All right, so
where are we at?
6 and 7.
Empire has broken through.
They have invaded the capital of the kingdom. Episode 6 kicks off with the princess kind of once again kind of in a funk because she is realizing, the weight of responsibility, the weight of her leadership, and like, hey, my commands explicitly get people killed. Like that is the price of leadership, Yep. And so we're having another big battle where like, the empire is attacking the kingdom, and the kingdom's like, they're holding out as best they can, but like realistically, like they just don't have enough manpower, they don't have enough mechs, they don't have enough resources left to actually really like fight this war anymore. It's to the point now where like, the old ace commander guy he's like, I haven't piloted a mech in quite a few years, but it's time to take to the field.
If I go out, it'll be good for morale.
Yeah, exactly. It's at the point right where, it's like it's Yang Wen Li sorting out in the Hyperion, except he's not really, and Roenthal, you're just a dumbass. But
anyway, yeah.
But that battle happens. It's going bad for the kingdom because, like, at this point, it's just like the kingdom has just lost too much in this war. Like they're very much in the same kind of death spiral that the FPA currently is in the Legend of the Galactic Heroes, where like this, no matter what happens at this point, it's like just too little to recover from the position they're in until the princess, like, because she spends this whole episode being like, oh, what does it mean to be the ruler of a people's? Like, how can I save lives? Like, how can a ruler save lives? Because everybody's telling her, like, look, as the ruler, your job is to take lives. Like, that is what your job is. Like, you will take lives to save lives kind of thing, And she finally, breaks out of her funk. And they hinted in the episode 1 that she's actually, like, this fucking mega tactical genius that, like, she just sees battles in a way others don't, and
even if she's 12 years old.
Yes, and so she like she watches the battle, and she realizes that like, oh, wait a minute, like there's a way we can win this fight, and like she realizes, oh, like actually the area they're fighting on is like super unstable because there's like underwater caverns like underneath it, and like manages to like trigger an explosion with artillery that like collapses the whole area. So it creates this huge canyon between the Empire and the kingdom.
At least on this battlefield.
At least on this battlefield, yes. And it's one of those things where it's like I could go into a really long tangent about like how hard it is to write good tactics, like how hard it is to write like good, like how hard it is to write somebody who is believably a genius. Like, again, I'll save this for our sister podcast. But like writing somebody who is actually a bona fide military genius is super hard because you, the writer in and of yourself, kind of have to be a little bit of a genius too to like write good, believable strategies. Because the problem with this is that the thing that I'm side-eyeing is how come it took the 12-year-old girl to notice that this is what the terrain looked like? Like, all the commanders, all the generals, not a single one of them mentioned, oh, by the way, the ground here is very unstable, and with not even that much explosions, it's like one barrage of artillery collapses the entire thing. It's like
they like trigger all their landmines.
Yeah, it's like wait, you... Because like they're fighting on the defensive. They were the ones who set up their defenses before the Empire attacked. It's like, so wait, you had all this time to set up these mines and you didn't notice, like, you know...
Is this a Zephyr particle situation?
I think it's more of a, like... This is that the Promise of the Princess is being written as an anime genius by a writer who is not a genius, essentially, right? Like they're pulling up the kind of tactical ass pulls that people like Lelouch or Light pull off, you know?
Right.
Where it's like they're not actually smart plans, just everybody else is too stupid to notice them. Right. And I think that is always like far less satisfying to watch.
Yeah. Anyway, but like it doesn't actually matter because she decides to surrender anyway because that's what it'll take to save the lives of her citizens.
Yeah, so she decides that she's going to surrender to the Empire, be like, fuck it, like, we cannot win this war. Like, they will continue to kill us. They will continue to burn our cities down. I will surrender, and we'll try to negotiate for, like, favorable terms.
But no!
But her leadership have better other ideas. Then once again, they're like, "Yes, princess, we are the delegation that will take you to the Empire borders
to sign the armistice
treaty. Just come here on this ship." And then, like halfway through the trip, she's like,
"Oh boy,
aren't we going in the opposite direction of the border?" And they're like, "Sorry, princess, like we can't have you surrender. We're
fighting to the end.
We will fight this war to the bitter end." And she's just like, "What have you people done?" Like, you have doomed our people. And it's like, oh man, this show just... And that's just episode 6, dog. We haven't even got into episode 7. Holy shit.
So episode 7 is like, the Empire is fully occupied, the capital of the kingdom.
They're burning the flags.
Yep. Burning the flags, that's right.
We just had this great scene where they're just they're taking down every single kingdom flag in the city.
Some kingdom flags, just throwing them on the fire.
Yes. It's pretty good. Anyways, Iro, continue.
Yeah, and so it's kind of downtime for the Empire squad that we've come to know and love. Yeah, one of their number got injured during like an earlier
during the previous episode's battle.
Yeah, and he's gonna get out of the hospital soon. So we need to throw a party for him because he was injured enough to be discharged from military service as well. He's in a wheelchair and everything. And so it's kind of a downtime episode of we're going around and looking for ways to throw a party, finding shitty old rations or whatever.
Or like raiding the princess's wine cellar.
That's right.
Which is pretty good.
They're like, oh yeah, most of these bottles got ruined by the shelling of the city, but a couple of them made it out okay, I guess. Yeah, we'll just take them.
It's pretty good.
I'm gonna throw them away anyway.
She's 12 years old. She ain't gonna drink that shit.
It's true. So they throw a party, and the old commander man reveals that he runs an orphanage back home.
This Commander Man that, by the way, sounds suspiciously a lot like Kiryu from Yakuza.
Nice.
Like he kind of has.
Yeah.
It's not him, but he has like the same cadence and like tone to his voice.
He happens to run an orphanage or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, and Crip guy who was an injured guy is like, my parents run a farm, but then we used to be okay, but if we fell into poverty because my dad bought some bad seeds, and he told me that I was also a bad seed.
I ran away to the military. It's
so an old man's like, well, you should come work in my orphanage if you don't want to go back home. And he's like, how can I, a bad seed, help grow other seeds?
Right. It's a real fucking like. I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, there's already like a bunch of implications in the story we've seen so far that the commander guy himself, maybe like a Kiryu Kazuma, has done some ratchet shit in his past, and that in a way, his orphanage is also his way of trying to atone.
Kiryu did nothing wrong, but.
You're right. Kiryu did nothing wrong. Majima's the one who did
some things wrong, but yes, let's go.
Majima did everything wrong. But yeah. So it's the thing. I was not initially as sold on this episode until I got later into it, where I was like, okay, actually, I kind of really like this episode because like it's not the soldiers fighting or anything. It's just them hanging out in like the captured capital, and like there are some surprisingly good little bits of storytelling here and there. Where like. The Empire soldiers kind of remark that, like, man, like, fucking, we don't get any of this shit back in the Empire, or like, which kind of implies like, kind of the economic, like, disparity between the two nations, or like, there's a part where like the soldiers kind of share like their local, like, the delicacies, like local town area, like
during their party.
Right, where guys like, hey, yeah, this is a local delicacy in our town. Everybody loves these beans, and They taste awful, and then another dude's like, don't worry, wash it down with some of my town's like local delicacy. It's this like awful herbal drink that tastes even worse. It's like it's it's not the most compelling or well written like stuff, but like it does a good job of like kind of evoking the feeling of the age old trope of these soldiers are people too, and like they're just trying to get by as best they can. And after a while, you're like, all right, this is an okay episode, but not really what I'm here for with Price of Smiles until the last 2 minutes.
Oh boy!
We also get Stella's like dramatic, comically overwrought backstory.
Yes, I forgot. Yes, yes, she's an orphan.
She's talking to the old man out on the balcony. And she doesn't necessarily approve of orphanages. But old man's like, I'm not raising kids who are like you, who smile and pretend that nothing's wrong.
Yeah, there's a pretty good bit there where Commander directly calls her out on her fucking soulless smile that she throws on like most of the time. But so then the episode ends with
wheelchair guy.
He's
agreed to go work at the orphanage after he stops at home.
Yeah, and he's boarding the unarmed transport ship with all the other injured soldiers being sent back to Empire territory. When that transport gets attacked and destroyed,
I can see where this is going.
And he is killed before he gets back home.
No.
And,
after the whole moral that even the bad seed that doesn't take root can flourish if cared for properly, just like these sunflowers in the palace that someone cared for. You can also grow tall if you don't get blown up.
Yeah, if you don't get attacked while you're in your unarmed transport ship. Which
so funny.
That's the part where there's the Price of Smiles I know and love.
This continues to sound like the type of show, if it had a competent writer and a better character designer, would be really good.
Yeah, totally. No.
It's just the execution. I when I was looking up the episode titles, I happened to randomly see a random commenter on episode 7 compared this to like eating a steak dinner or something with no salt. Like the like this, because he specifically said like the character designs of the writing are terrible, but like the foundation is good. And it's like if you just had the right seasoning on it or something.
A little bit of seasoning, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know if I'd go that. I'd say the thing that The Price of Smiles, like in all seriousness, like jokes aside, it's very ambitious. It's trying some things that like even most mecha anime don't really dare try, you know? And this is across the board, like both in the mecha aspect and the character aspects. Like in episode 6, like once again, they kind of do like a large scale battle. Like it's a battle between like dozens of mechs on each side fighting it out. And again, like a lot of mecha anime don't really try to do that. You know, most mecha anime tend to prefer their one-on-one fights.
Expensive, man.
Because it's expensive to animate more than that. But like The Price of Smiles is using CG mecha, so they recognize, one of the things we actually can afford to do is just, Control-C, Control-V this mech like 15 times. Like, and it helps lend to the illusion of a greater scale than most mecha anime. And then in the character stuff, it is trying to be ambitious with like the princess's struggle with like the burden of leadership and like this idea that like it is naive to think that like it is like the show explicitly like fucking like shows it in her face. It is naive to think that a soldier's job is to save people. That a soldier's job at its core is to kill people, preferably people that are not your people. Or all the stuff with like the Empire. It's like it's trying and it doesn't necessarily always succeed, but the fact that it keeps trying is in and of itself kind of admirable.
Right. Gotta be a good writer to pull that stuff off, though. I mean,
yeah,
those are nuanced type of topics that require a certain level of insight and ability to write that not everybody can pull off. Insert your Legend of Galactic Heroes reference. All right, well, I mean, again, that show continues to be a bit ahead of pace of everything, so I guess you're already kind of moving into the end game then, huh? Because next will be episode 8, so
theoretically, yeah.
Well, speaking of the horrors of war,
I don't know about that one. Yeah, it works. Yeah. All right. So okay, let's move on to Kaguya-sama: Love Is War, our final show of the episode here. I personally think the show has just been getting better every time we talk about it, and it's kind of moved to my personal show of the season.
All right.
We talked about last time how the airhead secretary girl Fujiwara has become like the MVP of the show. And she definitely kills it in episode 5. She does a lot of stuff, but my personal favorite moment was one of the other students come to the student council for relationship advice, and Kaguya, who's an idiot, is like, "Oh, well, you need a common enemy to fight. That will bring you close together." And so Fujiwara tries to spin it into a better direction. Because the girl's like, well, we're high school kids. We don't have any sworn enemies or anything. And so Fujiwara is like, we all have an enemy, and it's society. We need to rebel against the ongoing wars and the increasing gap between the rich and the poor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah.
All right. Hey, you know what?
Sees the means of production.
And so
down with the bourgeoisie.
So she's like, yes, we need to rebel against society. And so they show them later on. They see the couple that was asking for advice, working with some charity, doing like a charity drive thing or something like that. And so Fujiwara says, and I quote, I wrote it down, the feeling of wishing for peace, that may be the true meaning of rebelling against society.
Wow, thanks Yang Wenli.
So even though she's kind of an airhead who claims to have an IQ of 3, that's what she said herself in the well animated ED thing from last time. But she's dropping some Yang Wenli quotes on us there.
IQ of 3.
I don't think you can have an IQ of 3.
This just say an IQ of 3.
Yeah, it was a song lyric, so we got to cut her.
Yeah,
I mean,
trying to fit it in there, but yeah.
I wonder if that's a fucking.
You think it's a reference to something?
It might be.
Oh,
I don't want to call out references unless I'm 100% sure.
Okay, well,
an Oompa Loompa lyric.
Wait, what? Wait, what? Wait.
All right,
I don't.
All right,
wait.
tell you what. Let's do the research on that, and we'll get back to.
Wait. What are you? Wait, what?
Like in the song
when they call out the kid for watching too much television in Willy Wonka the Chocolate Factory.
All right.
Oh, is there a line about having an IQ of 3?
Yes.
Oh
okay.
Shit.
Well,
that's a little bit more explicit.
I commend your extensive knowledge of the song lyrics from Willy Wonka.
Yeah, that's impressive, man.
We'll double check on that one and get back to everybody next week. But
great, sure.
Needless to say, Fujiwara is great. And then in episode 6, we finally get some more characters because I've heard people talking about there's even more characters to show up. So
I mean, there's like another dude who shows up in the opening, right?
Yeah. So the dude shows up. He's the treasurer of the student council, and he's literally the main character from Persona 3.
Oh, fucking sure.
Like he has the hair and the headphones, and he's kind of like quiet and blunt and whatnot. But he's also apparently very sensitive and emotional, and he also thinks that Kaguya is a serial killer and wants to murder him. And hilariously, the evidence does not disprove his theory.
Well, you know.
Well, because it starts because like literally everybody knows that the main two are in love, right? But this guy is just very blunt and honest. So he's like, "Hey, so are you in love with the president?" And she's like, "I will literally murder you." so it kind of hit the whole shtick with him is how terrified he is of Kaguya because he legitimately thinks that she is going to murder him, and she probably would. So that kind of adds a fun new dynamic. Plus, they also reveal that her maid is also another student at the school, which is kind of weird.
That's always weird.
Like the blonde maid.
So she apparently is like, so by day she's a normal high school student who acts all like cutesy and like she's popular and has lots of friends and everything. And then by night she's her like serious maid or whatever. And like during the day she has like they show on her bag she has a tag that says "Beauty is ammo."
Okay,
pretty good. That's a pretty good quote, but
that's a pretty good motto to have.
And so 6 kind of round. I'm kind of sad it took so long to round out the whole cast, but I feel like now we kind of have everybody in place to like get the full scope of what the show has going on, and it's pretty great because like my main concern in like episode 1 and 2 is like, can they really drag this out for 12 episodes without get us getting bored? And they've thrown us enough kind of variation in there to keep it fun and interesting, and so it's not just the two idiots being being in love with each other. And even
that sounds good. I mean, I think I remember back when you were talking about this show at the very beginning. I think we all were saying like, does this got legs? Like, can they really just like? Because the problem with Takagi-san, right, is like there was only one dynamic, and that dynamic had to carry the entire show. So like,
yeah, I think
good. I guess it's good to hear that they've figured out how to keep it fresh.
I kind of blocked out in Takagi-san how much they cut away to the other 3 girls just to like kill time.
Oh yeah, totally.
And that had like nothing to do with the show. It was like clearly it was like clearly the worst part of the show, but like they couldn't literally only have Takagi and Nishikata going back and forth for 12 episodes. So like that was an attempt to break things up and it didn't work. Whereas in this case, they're doing a fantastic job adding other characters to kind of break things up, and it to the point where it's actually just making the show that much better. The side cast are kind of the MVPs here, but
right.
Even so, like and they do make sure to kind of nail the main part with the main couple. Like there's been a lot of like episode 6 ends with like because these shows can get frustrating when it's like, okay, you guys, you can't be this stupid, right? Like,
just make out already.
So
exactly.
like at the end of episode 6, the last arc, Kaguya gets like her nails done, and she's waiting for the president to notice, but the president doesn't want to say anything because he doesn't want to like play his hand, and he's like doing all these like mental gymnastics and everything, and finally at the end he's like, am I just an idiot and I'm just being like too shy here? Like, am I just
weird self-awareness?
Yeah, and so at the very last scene, he like dashes out to go catch Kaguya before she leaves, and he's like, and he tries like his best to say that her nails are cute, like with no like mind games or anything like that, and he's like extremely nervous and he can like barely spit anything out, and it's really cute and kind of it's nice to have those moments of like reality, so that it's not just like these guys are just
not
idiots.
All of them trying to kill each other.
Yeah, so it's managing to balance all the different things it has going very well, which I think is probably the strongest point of the show at this point. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's definitely a top tier, romantic comedy, if that's your thing. But yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
So I think that's going to do it for this episode. We got a couple hours break before the Crunchyroll Anime Awards come out. Aren't you guys excited? So as of recording, that's going to be happening in like 4 hours. So like I think 9 p.m. Eastern or something. I probably won't watch.
All right,
Maybe,
so all listeners out there, tune in. The GLORIO Network will be live chatting over the Crunchyroll Anime Awards.
Yeah, well, I was listening to this like 2 days after those things air.
Exactly. So you'll already know our thoughts on it by then. So
not to throw too much shade, but like it's hard to see how it could be worse than last year. Because the production, like. When you're cutting to like the video from 2 awards ago, when you're announcing the award that you're supposed to be talking about right now, it's like,
well, they got maybe they'll have more budget this time because they're sponsored by Devil May Cry 5. It leads to the
look, man.
I keep saying the Crunchyroll Awards featuring Dante from the Devil May Cry series.
Devil May Cry series.
Yes. Look, man. Live productions are hard.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I feel for them, but also like they also make it very easy to clown on because A, the production is not that great. B, the awards themselves are kind of chicken shit. So like. On some level,
the nominees were good, but like I don't expect any of the right ones to win. But
right, it's just
we'll see.
It's hard to take seriously, and it's like we don't mean to like. I don't mean it to like as a way of like castigating anime fandom as a whole, even though you all completely deserve it. But like, just like also the fact that the awards are voted on by the people means that like you're just going to end up with like. Just what everybody watched the most of, right? So it's going to be like Shield Hero, fucking Darling in the Franxx.
Well, that's the other thing.
Like, sort of
this is still for 2018 only, and we've all kind of.
We're in February.
Yeah, we don't care. We're almost to March now at this point, right? So
we are more than halfway through February.
Don't even say that. God damn it.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's probably telling that. While the nominees are pretty good and put together by a panel of people that actually includes people I respect, the fan vote thing is what really kills it because that's how we get the results.
Anime fans are morons, including us.
Yes, sure, but
we're still somehow better than the rest of you.
The GLORIO Chat is the least moronic anime podcast on the internet.
Anyway, I appreciate that they do it. To be honest, it gives us something to talk about, and we'll winners. Maybe we'll win the winners next episode, but we'll see.
Yeah, we need to kill some time again in the next podcast. We've run out of Battle Royale jokes. Yeah. We can instead make jokes about the Anime Awards.
Yeah, it's easy material. They're writing it for us. So
indeed.
Anyway, so that'll do it. You can read. Well, we haven't put much to read up lately.
Well, look,
you can check out the glorioblog.com for all of our content. Well, we'll probably get we're about due for our our op-eds post. Best openings, endings for the season.
Yes.
That may be in the next 2 to 3 weeks, so keep an eye out for that. Read our stuff at theglorioblog.com. When we decide to write things, I have some ideas for things to write, and I just need time to do them. So hopefully we'll get something out.
Just apologies, we are all. It's a busy time of the year.
Yeah. So there's that.
We're not getting paid to do this, so.
So there's that. Follow us on Twitter at the GLORIO blog. Like, comment, subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. We're on Podbean. The podcast also goes up on YouTube.
Legend of Galactic Heroes can be seen on High Dive and VRV.
Yes. Our podcast, Legend of the GLORIO Heroes, on the same feed. Check that out and watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes on High Dive. Did I miss anything? Tell your friends, tell your enemies.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I think that's about it.
Subscribe on YouTube.
Yes.
So we
want a URL.
Comment, subscribe. Smash that bell icon.
Yeah.
Is it a bell?
Join that notification
I
squad.
don't fucking know.
Yeah,
that.
All right. Let me wrap it up before we continue to make fools of ourselves here. So that'll do it for the show.
Too late, man.
Thank you guys for being on. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.
And we'll catch
you
all next time.
See you later.
Bye.
Couldn't